All right, ready to launch into today's deep dive?
Always.
We're soaring into the world of unmanned aerial vehicles.
Or, as most people know them, drones.
You got it. And we've got some intriguing excerpts from 2014 on POW2.
A book that really was ahead of its time, published back in 2017.
It really was like they had a crystal ball predicting this drone revolution. The tech, the potential, even the business opportunities.
It's amazing how much they got right, even before consumer drones really took off.
Right. So where do we even begin? I'm fascinated by how this went from, like, sci-fi to something we see every day.
Well, the book starts by blurring the lines a bit. Robots, unmanned vehicles, drones.
Okay.
They even use pop culture references. R2-D2, KITT from Knight Rider.
To show how our idea of a robot has changed.
Exactly.
Okay, I can see that. But, like, my Roomba isn't C-3PO. Where do we draw that line?
Well, that's the whole point. The book argues a robot, in this context, isn't about looking human. It's about acting autonomously. So a drone delivering a package, a Roomba cleaning your floor.
It's doing its own thing without us telling it every step.
Exactly. And this all ties back to the book's idea of thinking globally but acting locally. These advancements are impacting our lives, even in small ways.
It's not some distant future anymore. It's here. And speaking of practical uses, we have to talk about the military.
Oh, absolutely.
The Predator drone, especially. The book really highlights that.
Rightfully so. The Predator drone really changed things in terms of warfare.
Yeah. But what's interesting is how the book predicted drones would be even bigger than that. Not just for the military. Definitely. They saw the civilian use potential way back then.
Which is huge, if you think about it. Those military drones were expensive, complicated. How do we go from that to, like, people using drones for vacation photos?
It all comes down to technology. GPS, gyroscopes, miniaturized electronics, it all got cheaper, more accessible.
Makes sense.
You're right, a Predator drone costs millions. But a DJI Phantom, a lot of people can afford that now.
Night and day.
Opens up a world of possibilities, which the book called Drones' Big Future.
And how it's amazing all the things drones are being used for. Delivering packages to, well, you name it.
Seriously. And the book dives into that, how drones are changing things up in all sorts of sectors.
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, take civil engineering. It's not just inspecting bridges anymore.
It's not.
It's about safety, cost savings. Drones can get to hard-to-reach places, find problems before they get huge, and do it all cheaper than old-school methods.
Wow. Talk about a far cry from dropping bombs. It's like this accessibility really got the ball rolling.
Exactly. It's what makes the future of drones so interesting. It's not just big companies or governments anymore. Individuals, small businesses, they have access now, and they're coming up with amazing new applications all the time.
So we've gone from robots in a galaxy far, far away to drones bringing us our groceries.
It's kind of wild when you think about it.
But before we go full Jetsons, let's zoom in. Where are drones already making a big difference?
Okay, good idea. Let's start with agriculture. The book highlights how drones are really shaking things up, especially with this thing called precision agriculture.
Precision agriculture. Okay, now you're just using big words to sound smart.
It's not that complicated, actually. Imagine this. Instead of just blanketing a whole field with fertilizer or pesticides, farmers can use drones to map everything out really precisely, see which areas need what.
So it's like a zoomed-in view of their fields.
Exactly. And drones can even use these special cameras, multispectral cameras, to analyze plant health, check the soil, even spot diseases early on.
That's wild. So less waste, healthier crops. All because of some flying robots.
It's more efficient and better for the environment. Less waste means a smaller ecological footprint, too. It's a win-win.
I like the sound of that. The book really seems to focus on drones doing good, not just being cool gadgets.
Totally. And it goes beyond farming. Environmental monitoring, conservation efforts, drones can really make a difference.
I bet. Like those hard-to-reach places we talked about.
Exactly. Dense forests, remote coastlines, even disaster zones.
Okay, so we're talking, like, tracking endangered animals. Seeing how bad deforestation is.
All of that. They can even help after a natural disaster.
How so?
Well, they can fly over a disaster zone, right? Send back images, help rescue workers figure out the damage, find survivors, even deliver supplies to areas that are hard to reach.
Drones to the rescue. I actually remember there was that earthquake a few years back. They were using drones to drop off supplies. It was amazing.
It makes a huge difference. And since they can operate on their own, you're not putting rescue workers in danger.
So it's like having eyes in the sky, but without risking lives.
Exactly. And because drones can gather all sorts of data, it's like getting a real-time health checkup for the planet. Air quality, fire spread, you name it, they can monitor it.
Okay, so we've covered agriculture, the environment, disaster relief.
And we're just scratching the surface.
This is blowing my mind. But all this innovation,
Yeah.
got to be a cost factor, right? What's the book say about, like, the business side of this drone revolution?
They predicted a huge boom in the drone market with tons of new businesses popping up.
And were they right?
Totally. They called out companies like DJI Innovations, huge in the drone world these days.
Yeah, for sure.
But they also said the real opportunity wasn't just making drones. It was finding those specialized uses, niche services.
I never thought about it like that. Like, instead of just having a drone, you have a drone business.
Exactly. Aerial photography, agriculture consulting, you name it.
Wow. It's crazy to think. I saw a drone delivering coffee just the other day.
It's already happening.
So the book called that one, too.
Oh, yeah. They had some great advice for anyone looking to invest in drone companies or even start their own business.
Like what? I'm listening.
Well, they emphasized understanding regulations. The rules around drone use are always changing.
All right, makes sense.
And they stressed doing your research before investing. Don't just buy into the hype.
So a little cautionary advice amidst all the excitement.
Exactly. They advocate for being realistic. Drones have crazy potential, but you need to be responsible.
Like the Wild West out there. New uses, ethical questions. Lots to think about.
And speaking of ethical considerations, that's something the book really digs into.
Concerns, like what?
Yeah. Well, privacy is a big one.
Makes sense. They're small, they can be pretty sneaky and record everything.
Exactly. And they can use facial recognition software. So there are questions about who's watching and what they're doing with that information.
Yeah. Feels a little Big Brother-ish.
Right. And while drones can be helpful for security and stuff,
Yeah.
you have to be careful about how that technology gets used.
Big responsibility. Okay, so privacy is a big one. What else?
Well, there's always a chance of drones being used for criminal activity, too.
Oh, right, like smuggling or even like attacks.
That's the scary part. And it's something the book acknowledges. As drones become more advanced, more accessible, well, you have to think about how to prevent the bad guys from using them, too.
So another balancing act then. Figuring out the good and preparing for the bad.
And that's where the book gets really interesting. They didn't just talk about the technology itself. They talked about the impact, the choices we make as a society.
Ooh, I like where this is going. So what else did they predict? So we've talked about drones changing things up in agriculture, disaster relief. But it feels like the book dug even deeper. You know, like they went out of their way to find these really unique applications.
Oh, absolutely. One that really stood out to me was using drones for archaeology and cultural preservation.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Well, imagine this. Using drones to make these crazy detailed 3D models of, like, ancient ruins.
Oh, wow. So you can see everything, even the stuff that's hard to get to on foot.
Exactly. And not just seeing it. You can use drones to monitor these places, see if they're being damaged, which is huge for sites threatened by climate change, erosion, all that.
Right, like it's a race against time. Document everything before it's gone.
And the book talks about how this tech changes how we experience these places, too. Like, imagine putting on a VR headset.
Oh, here we go.
And taking a drone tour of the Great Wall of China from your living room.
Talk about bringing history to life. But it's not just about the past, right? Mm-hmm. The book also throws drones into the future of work, like those remote meetings and virtual inspections.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating stuff. Think about it. A bridge inspector could basically teleport to a job site. No travel time, no safety risks.
And way cooler than a Zoom call.
Exactly. Or, like, a team of architects could check out a construction project together, all using a drone.
It's like they're all right there, even if they're miles apart.
And as VR gets better and better, those experiences are only going to get more realistic.
Wild. It really feels like the possibilities are limitless. But, like we talked about, there's always another side to the coin. The book doesn't shy away from the ethical concerns around drones, does it?
Not at all. They really dig into those concerns, but in a balanced way. Like, they talk about the potential benefits, but also the risks. Privacy, for example, is a big one.
Well, Yeah. If a drone can fly anywhere undetected and record everything, and that's a little creepy, honestly.
That's what they're saying. It raises all these questions about surveillance, data collection, and who has access to all that information.
And it's not just governments doing the watching, right? A private company could get their hands on this stuff, too.
Exactly. And while drones can be valuable for security and law enforcement, you have to be careful about how that technology is used.
For sure. Okay, so privacy is a biggie. Anything else?
Well, we also can't ignore the potential for criminal activity.
It's true. Easier to smuggle things, maybe even carry out attacks. Not good.
And that's something the book acknowledges. As drone tech gets more advanced, more people have access to it. Well, you got to think about how to prevent those things from happening.
Makes you wonder if we can ever really stay ahead of the bad guys with technology like this.
It's a good question. It's like a constant race. As drones get more sophisticated, the ways to misuse them will too.
So what you're saying is it's not enough to just invent new things. We have to anticipate the downsides and adapt, right?
Right. But here's the thing. Even with all those concerns, the book is optimistic. They believe in a future where drones are used for good. But it takes planning, regulation, and a lot of open discussion.
It's a team effort, basically. We can't just sit back and expect things to magically work out. We all have a role to play in shaping this technology.
That's exactly what the book argues. The future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make today. How we regulate this technology, how we use it, how we address those ethical dilemmas, that's what will determine the future of drones.
So, listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, we leave you with a question to ponder.
Yeah.
What role will you play in shaping this future? Will you be part of the conversation? Maybe even a trailblazer, finding creative solutions or advocating for responsible use. Whatever path you choose, remember, the sky's the limit.